On the Obama administration this morning with regard to its dealings with Iran as well. The president yesterday said this: the Obama administration is now accused of trying to give Iran secret access to the financial system of the United States. This is totally illegal. Perhaps we could get the 13 angry Democrats to divert some of their energy to this matter, quote unquote, as Comey would call it, investigate. What about that, Hugo? How much is actually known about how lenient the Obama administration was with Iran? We were talking about this yesterday with James Freeman and from the Wall Street Journal. And basically what we learned was it was the banks, two banks, that said no, pushing back on the Obama administration, saying, no, we're not going to get involved in this, and we are not going to facilitate Iran to get involved in our financial system.
Right. What happened was that the Treasury did, in fact, issue licenses to allow money in, I think it was both in one bank in Muscat and another one in Korea, to use the American financial system to exchange the local currency through dollars into other currencies. But the banks didn't want anything. What this shows is not so much illegality. I think the president got that wrong. The Treasury did issue the licenses. But it shows how desperate the Obama administration was to please Iran, to get cozy with Iran. There is evidence that these moves, granting the licenses, were used by the Obama administration to show Iran that it was going beyond what was actually required in the deal, even though the defense by the Obama administration now is that it needed to do these things for the deal. I don't think that's true.
Right. It wasn't illegal. But again, we had Secretary of State John Kerry and all these other administration officials after the deal. They were across Europe trying to encourage banks to do business with Iran to make this work. Just to point out, Hugo, we need to drive this point home. $100 billion in sanctions relief for Iran, a state sponsor of terror. $1.7 billion in pallets of cash sent in the middle of the night that we wouldn't even know about without the Wall Street Journal reporting.
Incredible.
And this to basically fund Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthi rebels in Yemen and cause unrest and exact terror on parts of this world. That's exactly what went on with this. And this
You're
is
exactly right.
This is an outline of what any deal with North Korea does not need to look like. All it did, we handed Iran money and then just pushed down the road development of a nuclear weapon. Again, the sunset, the nuclear development kicks back in 2025. It's an abomination.
Here's my question, though, and maybe Hugo, you can best answer this. And you've used some interesting words, that what they've uncovered was improper, what they've uncovered they shouldn't have done. Are we ever going to get to some indictable offenses? Yes, the past administration have done things they shouldn't have done, but again, I think the American taxpayer is getting to the point where they say, so what? Every administration does that.
No, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think that on this particular issue relating to Iran, I don't suppose there will be indictments. But because there were licenses. But Jack Lew, the Treasury Secretary, deceived Congress by when he was asked questions about this. There was language that had been prepared that if he was pushed on this issue, he was going to have to admit that the administration was making things easy for Iran, or trying to make things easy for Iran. He didn't, even though he was pushed on this, he never used that language. Congress was left in the dark about the fact that the administration was going above and beyond a deal which Congress didn't like anyway. And so there was deceit and dishonesty from the Obama administration on this issue, as on many other issues.
Certainly feels that way. Hugo, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
We'll see you soon. Hugo Gordon.
After signing the 2015 nuclear agreement, Iran had a $6 billion problem. The nuclear deal gave Iran access to its international bank accounts. One account in Oman held about $6 billion in local currency. To use it, the Iranians needed to convert that money first to U.S. dollars, then to euros. And the Obama administration was ready to help.
I think they did so because they were desperate to get a deal. So on the one hand, they were saying that the Iranians were not going to get access to the American financial system. On the other hand, they actually granted Iran a specific license to allow them to take some of the funds that had been in escrow.
A report from the Republican majority of the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations says the Obama administration bypassed existing sanctions and cleared the way for Iran to use the U.S. financial system, even as officials claimed that would never happen. The Senate report cites pledges from then Treasury Secretary Jack Lew and other top administration officials.
Iran will be denied access to the world's most important market and unable to deal in the world's most important currency.
The report says that in January 2016, Iran complained about its nearly $6 billion stuck in an Oman bank. 1 month later, the Obama Treasury Department issued a license, allowing a transaction the federal government would otherwise prohibit. Officials then tried to persuade 2 U.S. banks to execute it. The report says, quote, both U.S. banks eventually declined, primarily due to the unwillingness to take on the legal and compliance risk, but also reputational concerns in doing business with a comprehensively sanctioned country like Iran. A former administration official refused to go on record, though tells Fox News the license fulfilled U.S. commitments under the nuclear agreement to, quote, give Iran access to pools of its money held overseas. This specific license cannot be described as granting access to the U.S. financial system. As for what happened to that $6 billion in Oman, the report says Iran likely retrieved it, gradually, using European banks.
Rumors and news that has appeared in the press that the U.S. is preparing to reinstate a U-turn authorization or to allow Iran access to the U.S. financial system are not true.
We have a full U.S. embargo on Iran that prohibits transfers of funds through the United States.
Iran will continue to be denied access to the world's largest market.
Whether knowingly or not, all of those Obama officials misled Congress. A Senate subcommittee on investigations report alleges that the Obama White House secretly sought to give Iran access to the U.S. financial system by sidestepping sanctions kept in place after the nuclear deal. Despite repeatedly telling Congress and the public it had no plans to let Iran do that. Remember when President Obama said this, quote, I didn't have scandals. Seems like it shouldn't be something you brag about. No one in my White House ever got in trouble for screwing up as long as there was not malicious intent behind it. Let's bring in former speechwriter for George W. Bush. He's a Wall Street Journal editorial board member. It's Bill McGurn. All right, he didn't have any scandals. We counted at least 20.
Right.
Around 20. Let's show them. The Iranian deal to Russia, IRS targeting, Benghazi, Fast and Furious, and more. Your reaction to this report?
Well, look, I think, well, to the report specifically, it's outrageous. And I think it's part of a larger fraud of the Iran deal, where it was presented as a treaty, but they made an end run around the Senate. Everything was done to not follow the process, you know, and now it's upended because it was so brittle. But I think that's the real, there's a lot of scandals. I think it's fair to say in most administrations you're going to have some scandals, just human nature.
Yeah, but this one
this is in a different category because so many of their scandals were either manipulating or going around the rules, as in this case. And remember all the comments Ben Rhodes said about Iran getting the deal, how you could manipulate the press, and
because they don't know, they're young,
too much. So
they're young reporters.
You can tell them whatever you want.
Yeah. I mean, here's Donald Trump saying today, quote, this is totally illegal. Perhaps we could get the 13 angry Democrats to divert some of their energy to this matter, as Comey would call it. Investigate. Is it illegal? Should there be an investigation? Now, there's a debate whether it's illegal, but they certainly did mislead Congress. And then they talked about the snapback sanctions. Obama kept going on about snapback sanctions. And it turns out the 200 road shows, the one in London, Treasury officials under Obama's bill were saying, you know what, don't worry about the snapback sanctions to the banks at that
And this is the danger
place.
of a more or less compliant press that they didn't press him on at the time in the Iran deal. A lot of people just look the other way.
But, you know, this makes you think, like, what else was going on behind the scenes?
Yeah, well, I think we're learning,
House, right?
With the FBI, we're learning a lot about it. I mean, we now have a deputy director of the FBI who may be under criminal indictment soon. Let's remember, whatever Mrs. Clinton's culpability is, she took her entire emails off the grid because she didn't want anyone looking at it. It's someone that served in the White House. That's incredible.
And known classified info of that.
Right.
But staying on this Iran deal, what the Obama White House seemed to be doing was trying to normalize a jihadi regime that hates America and is brutal and supports terrorism.
I think it's a warning
with cash. You're trying to get them cash.
It's a warning for President Trump on Kim. You know, President Obama wanted a deal from the first day at almost any price, and he paid almost any price.
Is he going to get in trouble for this report?
I don't know if he's going to get in trouble, but I think it's going to make the Trump policy a lot easier to effect because it's going to be a more honest policy, right? I mean, the Trump administration says if they're going to be deals, we're going to put them before the Senate. We're going to argue about them openly and honestly. So I think
it's like you're seeing Trump's deals in real time, but with Obama, it's all the shadow diplomacy and side deals.
And look, in a democracy, a free society, process is as important as outcome.
I mean,
and the Obama administration ran over process whenever they felt they needed to.
Pen and phone. It's pretty stunning. Can you come back in and talk about this? Because this is a major report. Bill, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Liz.
We love having you on.
Napolitano is here. Now, wait a second. Back to the original premise here. It is reported that the Obama administration allowed the Iranians access to our financial system at a time when sanctions were imposed on Iran. We should not have given them that access to our system.
All right, that is a political and financial argument with which I agree, but it is not a legal argument.
Okay.
So the president is wrong. It is not illegal. It is lawful. What is troubling is it was treachery because we didn't know about it, because the Obama administration kept up the facade that there was a wall between the Iran and American banks. Now, as it turned out, no American banks wanted to cooperate with Iran. The government gave the Iran banks a license. The Treasury Department actually issued a license, a lawful license. Remember, the president can impose a sanction and can selectively remove all or part of a sanction. That's the law. It may be too much power in the hands of the president, but that's the law. Donald Trump has that power himself. But the American banks refused to go along with it. They were afraid that they would still get in trouble. The Obama administration begged them to say yes. They continued to say no. It never happened.
We have a Treasury Secretary, or we had a Treasury Secretary, who went before Congress. He was asked about Iran's access to our financial system, and he said, right there, he said, no, they don't have access.
Well,
we're not doing it.
Okay, so
and they were.
Either that...
And he was in charge of it.
Yes, either that was an untruth, which would be a crime, or... He did not know that his own Treasury Department had issued this license, which would be the height of incompetence for him not to know that his Treasury Department had issued a license on its face violative of a sanction in a white-hot environment like Iran's banking system and ours. So how this happened, I don't know. I'm glad we found out about it because we know the truth. It's not unlawful, but it's political treachery.
President Obama would do anything, and did just about
to bring about that deal,
to make sure you got that Iran nuke deal.
Remember when he said there's no side deals?
Yes.
Well, this obviously was the side deal, because this, we will grant you a license, did not appear in any of the documents that Congress saw. So when Lindsey Graham and the others said there's a side deal, there's a side deal, there's a side deal, and John Kerry said no, Senator Graham was right, Secretary Kerry was wrong.
And President Obama said snapback sanctions will come into play if Iran violates a deal. At the same time, Treasury officials, 200 roadshows around the world, were saying, don't worry about the snapback sanctions. 95% of the time, we don't invoke them.
Remember the bucket loads of cash?
I do.
Where do you think that ended up? North Korea.
North Korea?
Yes.
Well, we had pictures of the plane
loaded to the startling picture to see.
Off it went to Iran.
To see all that. Well,
how do you know it ended up?
I don't know, but there are people who believe that there was a financial relationship between North Korea and...
because Iran had a nuclear relationship with North Korea.
Correct. And what did North Korea desperately need? Dollars. Literal dollars so that it could buy goods. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
But we shouldn't.
Even I, as a libertarian, am outraged at this because it's lawlessness. It's the president and his administration seriously and egregiously misleading the American public about what they're doing, and Congress, right, EMAC, about what they're doing with the power we have given them.
And they're going to get away with it.
Well, yes, they will
get away with it.
Because, again, contrary to what President Trump said, it was not illegal. It was very wrong morally to mislead us like that, but not illegal. Can the president lie to the American public legally? Answer yes.
Okay. But Senator Schumer is now asking for help from former President Obama, help in the midterm elections. I wonder if the good senator will now reverse course, bearing in mind what we've just found out about this Iran nuke deal.
Knowing Chuck Schumer, I doubt it. He hopes this stays a footnote. It shouldn't be. It should be front page is what we're talking about now.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Maybe regurgitate your new friendship with Senator Bernie Sanders?
You know, even a stop clock is right twice a day. Oh, he's going to kill me for saying sorry, Bernie.
Right. But you agree, and I agree with you, and you agree with Bernie Sanders.
And I must tell you, Stuart, everybody there, the two Republicans,
on the same page.
The two Republicans and the 5 Democrats, everybody there, and the 3 witnesses, we were all on the same page that it is profoundly violative of the Constitution for Congress to allow the president to declare war, whether you call it a war or not.
Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.